we're in a situation where typically 300,000 gold contracts are at work, and now we've got more than double. It's like 770,000, which means that if we get a nice move to 1900 or 2000 in the next several months, we're likely to see some of these big financial firms get wrecked by their gold shorts.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and today it's part 2 of my interview with Jim Willie, where he gets into this whole Donald Trump saga that started with a campaign telling us how the stock market was a big fat bubble, while now he is calling for lower interest rates and quantitative easing on an almost daily basis, it seems sometimes. So in either case, let's get right back into it, and here we go.
Let's get to Trump, okay? Because, oh gosh, it's been almost an hour. I have some little comments about Trump. Why don't you say your piece, Chris? Because we were talking about this before we recorded.
Well, I'm just curious, what is the real story? We heard big fat bubble while he was campaigning. Now he's out badgering the Fed on a daily basis for lower rates and QE. So it's hard to take what he says at face value. I mean, what does he really believe? Has he been compromised, or what's going on there?
I think there's a trade negotiation going on behind the scenes, and there's a trade negotiation that we're being told about. And they're not, neither one is complete. It's like there's part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is very high level. We're not told about it. Part 2 is what we see regarding grains and soybeans and various things like that. And that's where the visible side is where the trade, tariffs are showing up, and where sanctions are appearing for individuals and financial firms and even corporations like Huawei. I don't want to get into the entire Huawei story. Huawei is about, backdoor Langley access that Huawei didn't want to participate in. So they got accused of exactly what Langley's doing. Let me just leave it at that. Let me talk about the real trade negotiations, part 1. I'm being told that there are 2 things that are part and parcel, key elements of the trade negotiations that we're never told about. The first is that the Chinese are willing, they're willing to have a considerably higher Chinese Yuan RMB currency. I like calling it the RMB, renminbi. It means people's money in China. I don't like the name Yuan because it's very similar to won in Korea. It's very similar to yen in Japan. So the Chinese RMB, they're willing to see, let's just say, for rough argument, let's just say they're willing to allow a 20% RMB rise for their currency. Now imagine the problems that China would have to endure. They would want to see their Asian neighbors also have a rise. I'm talking about versus the dollar, okay? The dollar is your standard. Just like in the bond market, your treasury is your baseline for arbitrage. In the currency market, what is your value versus the dollar? It's always versus the dollar. Okay, if the RMB is lifted by 20%, they're going to want to see the Thai baht lifted. They're going to want to see the Korean won lifted. They're going to want to see the Malaysian, ringgit. I can't get confused. Malaysia and Indonesia. They're going to want those 2 countries to have their currency lifted. They're going to want the Taiwan dollar lifted so that they can continue to expand their trade in the Pacific Rim and East Asia. That's a very important point. The Chinese, if their currency is going to rise by 20% versus the dollar, they're going to want their main trading partners and their objective trade goal nations to rise also. because if they don't rise, suddenly the Chinese are going to be out in the cold, can't sell their goods because, my gosh, for now in Thailand, everything is 20% more costly. They're going to want their currency to come up also. So the Chinese are trying to get a pan-Asian, pan-Pacific currency rise versus the dollar baseline. And the Chinese are saying, we'll take that risk, but on condition for something very important to us and critical to our national goals and interests, and that is we want a double and then a triple in the gold price. Okay, we're not told about that. We're not told, well, we hear these little inklings about, oh, you know, the Chinese currency RMB is down a little bit, and you know, it's currency manipulation. The biggest currency manipulators in the history of mankind are in the Department of Treasury right now doing the Exchange Stabilization Fund activity. We are the biggest currency manipulators in modern history. We are the biggest backdoor espionage agents in modern history. It's so bad that the Pentium chip for Intel has a backdoor to Langley for all transactions and all internet activity. It's so bad that they coerced Apple to stop making their own chips and to use Intel's also. And then Apple is recommended for the Swiss National Bank, and they own a whole boatload of that stock. And before you know it, I heard that yesterday the market cap for Apple went up more than the top 300 companies of the S&P 500. The increase of the Apple market cap increase in one day was more than the 300 top companies of the S&P 500, their market cap, not their increase. It's gone way insane. I remember back in 2000, we used to say, oh gosh, this is getting out of control. Cisco Systems, the network giant, their market cap is touching $1 trillion. This can't stand. And now you can make the argument for Netflix, for Tesla, for, well, for, oh gosh, I just said Apple, for Google. What's Google? They're Alphabet Incorporated. Why Alphabet? Well, it's the Langley agencies are called the Alphabet Group. You know, the FBI, CIA, NSA, Food and Drug, FDA, Drug Enforcement, DEA, Defense Intelligence, DIC. Okay, well, a lot of these companies get benefits from Langley Software. I got a trivia question for you. Why did Facebook, I like putting people on the spot, but you know, it's not to embarrass or anything. You may not know. Why did Facebook get entered into the S&P 500, which required all kinds of funds to buy the Facebook stock and lift them from 20 or 30 up to 150? Why did Facebook, how did Facebook qualify, or why were they given an opportunity to get around the rules? Why did Facebook get entered in the S&P?
Well, I hear a lot of funky things about Facebook, so I'm guessing it's not any straightforward financial requirements they met, but some sort of deal that we haven't been told about.
Yeah, they got Langley Software for search. I mean, search mechanisms are not simple. I remember I worked with a woman in 2001, and she came from a competitor. I can't remember the name. That's how out of tune those search engines are. Now you've got DuckDuckGo, and you got a few others that are rivaling, not really challenging in an equal way, but they're trying to take some share away from the Google search. I still like Google search. I realize that some of it's a little tilted, but that doesn't bother me a lot if I'm looking for some main items. Okay, I came to learn, because I remember when I started the newsletter, there were a few switches. There were some S&P exits and some S&P entries. There were some Dow Jones exits and some Dow Jones entries. You had AT&T exit the Dow Jones, which was a very big deal, and you had some others that entered. So I researched it, and I found it in Barron's. There are two criteria for entering the S&P 500. 15 years of experience and a tangible product. Facebook had neither.
Right.
They got entered, and then the news came out that Zuckerberg is a grandson of the Rockefellers. Some of these people take their mother's last name to avoid the Rockefeller image, like Bill Clinton. Can you imagine William Jefferson Rockefeller, governor of Arkansas, running for president? Can you imagine? Another funny one. Who is Jimmy Carter's father? Okay, remember in the 80s, you were a young man. You were very young, I'm afraid. You're probably, oh my gosh, were you a thought or were you a man?
I came along in 78, so I caught a little bit of Michael Jackson in the childhood.
Okay, well, I was in graduate school when Jimmy Carter. Hi, I'm just a peanut farmer from, gosh, I can't think of it, Corinth, Georgia. Anyway, I remember, gosh, look at that. His mother is Miss Lillian, okay? Jimmy Carter's mother was Miss Lillian, and I asked him, where's his dad? And then there's Billy Carter. Billy Carter didn't have the same father, and I thought, who are the fathers? We're told they're not the same father, but who's the father? Nobody asks the question, not in the news, never in the news. So I kept my ears open for the next 10, 20 years. Whenever I heard anything about Jimmy Carter, who, by the way, hired on, oh no, I don't want to get into that. When Jimmy Carter's history became an item of discussion, my ears perked, and I came to learn a very important fact. Miss Lillian was a very attractive young woman when she was young. We got to look at her when she was 80. And we don't think, oh, there's a sexy woman. She must have had a trail of men behind her. No, you're looking at an 80-year-old woman. I mean, I used to think of my own mother at age 80. Well, Mom, I knew you were really sexy when you were young. I've got pictures, and I remember when I was a boy, I wanted my mother to kiss me goodnight and tuck me in when I'm 8 years old. Okay, Miss Lillian was the personal secretary of Joe Kennedy Jr.
Wow.
Joseph Kennedy Jr., father of our Camelot Kennedys, Jack, Robert, and Ted. We've only got Robert left, and Robert is now fighting the vaccines and Big Pharma. So the story goes that Miss Lillian asked for a leave of absence from her employer, Joseph Kennedy Sr., I called him Jr., sorry, and was given a leave of absence for her pregnancy. Okay. Put Jimmy Carter's face right next to Joe Kennedy Sr.'s face when they're both the same age, like 30. Put Robert Kennedy's face next to Jimmy Carter's face, next to Joe Kennedy Sr.'s face. They're all the same. Okay? Now, I don't need 100% proof. I don't need the genetic test. I've seen it. In the same picture, they had Billy Carter. He did not look like Robert Kennedy. Jimmy does. Jimmy even has the very big front incisors. You remember the Robert Kennedy look and the Jimmy Carter big teeth look? If you look at the cartoons of Jimmy Carter, they all have very big teeth. Okay. The big hair for Trump is the big teeth for Carter. I think Jimmy Carter's father was Joe Kennedy. He was handpicked. He came out of nowhere. He was nowhere in the early polls. He suddenly won the New Hampshire primary, and he's getting a lot of press time, just like Obama did. Nobody came to the forefront because he was part of the Camelot.
Yeah.
Okay, this is American politics. And why did Bill Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton, why did they not have a baby? Now you can say, oh, they did. It was Chelsea. Yeah, right. Webster Hubble and Hillary Rodham had a baby. Yeah, the name is Chelsea. Put the face of Chelsea next to the face of Webster Hubble, and you've got, oh yeah, there it is, the egg-shaped big face and huge lips. It's very clear. Okay, the reason why Bill Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton didn't have a baby is simple. They're both Rockefellers.
It's shocking how little we know about so many of these guys. I've been studying a lot of the history of the Bush family, you know, and not to go off the ranch, but I mean, it's public record, the Brown brothers Harriman involvement, which, as I know you're well aware, goes deeper than that. Although, Jim, I know you do have a couple things to do today. So just one last thing I wanted to get.
I want to get to Trump. I'm not going to let Trump
right.
get past here. Now, there are two names coming from all this Russian dossier, Obama Pelosi game that they're playing that has gotten revealed but not well reported. There are two names that I think one is called Rosenstein.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Mueller is the other one, but they're two names. And those two men had fathers in the Nazi organization of Germany. One was the head of the SS, and the other one was the head of the Gestapo.
Is one of them Otto Skorzeny? Because I hear his name pop up.
No. It was names that are in the news with the Russian dossier. It's Rosenstein and I think Mueller, but maybe not Mueller, but I'm pretty sure about Rosenstein. Strzok is another one, but I don't think Strzok had a father in the Nazi organization. Okay, let's get to Trump. Trump, from my understanding, is from an elite organization, elite group. And I don't like calling them a cabal because I think they're far more favorable in their pursuits and objectives. I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, I was reading about Trump and I learned that, okay, he comes from the German group. It's Trumpf with a PF at the end. He got rid of the F and he became Trump. I knew a number of people in my younger years who had a PF at the end of their name. Haupf. I think Haupf means head in English. Haupt in German. Okay. I think Trump comes from the Templars. He certainly had a lot of favor to recover from his bankruptcies, which were actually numerous. And I came to learn that the Rothschilds and Goldman Sachs helped him out. So when he assigned Goldman Sachs to be, I say Goldman Sachs to be the Department of Treasury, what I mean is the treasurer head was somebody from Goldman Sachs. That's a way of saying Goldman Sachs is now in charge of the Treasury. They're one and the same. It's Mnuchin. And some people like to describe, oh no, he's a movie producer and he's got just a financier. No, he's Wall Street. He's Goldman Sachs. Come on. And it was more. There was a guy named Cohn, and he was another Wall Street guy. He was an advisor, a financial economic advisor, I think.
You know, in the back, they decided to determine that Bitcoin was a bubble and pop it. So now Goldman Sachs is deciding which markets are too high or low.
They do a lot of market mechanism interference, and I believe it's the New York Fed that does a lot of that conduit work with the stock market. The New York Fed is a gigantic insider trading organization facility. Okay, back to Trump. He owed Goldman Sachs. So there are two motives. Put Goldman Sachs in because they helped me with my bankruptcy, but put Goldman Sachs in there to maintain continuity on the derivative management because we don't want to blow up in the first year from our ineffective expertise and naive ways of managing it all. Okay. Then you saw the neocons in the positions of power with the Pentagon defense secretary and NSA director. And the conclusion was simple. He's got all the neocons running the war effort, and he's got all Goldman Sachs running the banking effort. So what's the change? How is this cleaning the swamp? This is more like, and then we were told by a lot of people who were, I think, very well-meaning and honest, that they're the transition team. Okay, that could be. And I've been watching, well, okay, you know, last March, we had an action against Venezuela where we surrounded them with our Navy, called the naval blockade. And a lot of people said, well, here comes the invasion. I said, no, you're just stupid. I'm sorry, but anyone who thinks we're going to invade Venezuela is just plain stupid. In 2 months, the story will go away and you'll stop talking about it and you won't admit you're wrong because you're not only stupid, you're dishonest. It's pretty much what happened. 2 months ago, 3 months ago, looks like we're doing a naval blockade on Iran. We're going to invade Iran. I said, no, that's just stupid. We're not going to invade Iran because both Venezuela and Iran had two things in common: Russian and Chinese partners, right? Whether it's for energy development or for credit purposes. China's really not in Venezuela to run things. They're the creditor. The Russians are in there to run things. It's the Russians running it with a lot of Venezuelan employees. What I've heard is the upper ranks are gone. They're not Venezuelan anymore. They're Rosneft. That's hard to prove, but that's what I'm hearing. Okay, so now we got Trump, who claimed that the stock market was a bubble, and now he's claiming it is his biggest accomplishment. Okay, all right, well, that's kind of lunatic. I still can't get past his hair. I'd like more hair, but I still don't understand his hair.
Still wouldn't go for the Trump wig.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so then I talk with some of my best colleagues and say, okay, you're in favor of Trump and you see the best in Trump and you're still confident about the outcomes and the movements and the decisions. How are we going to fix this? We don't have sufficient industry. We need to reindustrialize. Remember, Trump in his campaign said we need $1 trillion reindustrialization to fix our infrastructure. He could not find anybody to help. Right. Because they didn't trust us. They didn't trust the contracts. They didn't trust the trade policy. They didn't trust, like, say, the vengeance of trade tariffs. We have a long history of tariffs. We use them as a weapon. We use SWIFT as a weapon in banking. We use tariffs as a weapon in trade. Okay, so what I'm hearing more and more is that Trump is collecting technology. He's not collecting, say, foreign direct investment with actual contracts to come in and do major acquisitions, plant and equipment, and big ass hiring with foreign direct investment, FDI. No, that's not FBI, not Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's foreign direct investment. It's a big statistic that's monitored. What he's doing is he's collecting technology. And what I'm hearing is that when the door opens, when the light goes on, when the lever is turned on the switch, we're going to see a magnificent, this is what I'm told, okay? I'm not sure I believe it, but from the Trump advocates who I respect, including a couple colleagues, they say, you're not going to believe the telecom. It'll put Huawei in the back seat. We got telecom coming. We got robotics coming. We got robotics for, you know, you see robotics for car manufacturing. It's the most popular thing that we observe. It's all over the place. In chip fabrication, it's all over the place. It's in micro server motors at the micron level. Imagine a motor at the micron level, which is a millionth of a meter. Imagine it at, say, you know, a tenth of a millimeter, a motor. Okay, we've got that technology. We're very good in many, many things, but we keep it all under the military. Now you see Trump opening the door and saying, we're going to have some technology release. We're going to have patent liberation. So we've got telecom, we've got artificial intelligence, which is often software, rules-based management, stuff like that, like hedge funds, algorithm trading, that's artificial intelligence. We got robotics, I mentioned. We got optics, which is mixed in with telecom. Like, you know, you got some cameras in outer space that can read the, can read your watch for the time or read your license plate for your license. And there's a whole lot more. We got quantum computers. We've got, oh gosh, radar. We got different weapons. We got drone technology. We got drone weapons. You know, you can take anything that's really advanced and high tech and turn it into a weapon. And I'm told that in some very major contracts, treaties, we violated them by weaponizing some advanced technology that we were given. I'll just leave it at that. Use your imagination a bit. When I ask people, these same people, how are we going to fund and finance this reindustrialization? I hear two things. It's a little funny, but you know, just go with me for a minute. I hear that we're going to invite foreign direct investment, and we're going to make peace with the Chinese. They've got still huge reserves and enormous gold reserves, over 100,000 tons. It's not official reserves. They're gold reserves residing in China. That's how I like to describe it. Might be private hands. But are the private hands related to the Chinese Communist Party? Yeah. Okay, so very difficult to distinguish. We're going to invite German investment. We're going to invite Dutch, Danish investment. The Dutch are very advanced in wind technology, wave technology. We're going to invite Russian. We're going to make good friends with Russia. Okay, I think one of the big surprises coming in the next year or two is the dissolved NATO. But let me get back to Trump, continue with Trump. So we're going to invite foreign direct investment and make some encouraging policies like 3 to 5 year forgiveness of income tax and property tax. That's standard. That's standard, what do you call it? Free trade zone policy. It's typically 3 years. So you get it up and running and you get some growth, and before you know it, you're in the black, you're making profit, and you can manage some property tax and you can manage some income tax, and you're exporting your face off. We got free trade zones in most states. Okay, the second source is going to be, try not to laugh, Trump is going to encourage a lot of US multinational companies who've seen tremendous increases in their market capitalization do spin-offs and, what do you call it, spin down? What's the other spin-off? Spin up? They're going to do expansions.
Right.
And they're going to use some of their stock to do it. So Trump wants to keep our stock market elevated for a very good selfish motive to reindustrialize America. Now just imagine several computer companies, several networking companies, several telecom companies, all banding together, creating a consortium of 30 major corporations, and they're helping to write the policy for the free trade zones to make even more relaxed income tax and property tax and hiring benefits, tax credits in the future for hiring, and then you get the trickle down. It could work. It could work. But remember, we've got a 1.1, 1.2 trillion or 900 billion trade deficit. That's a lot of gold if we go to a gold standard. Let me close by mentioning something. I don't know if you're aware, but you were busy in graduate school getting ready for your career in Wall Street, and I made a visit in August of '03. You were just a young kid. I assume you were shaving in '03. In '03, I got an invitation to visit Kurt Rickenbacker on the French Riviera. in Cannes. And I'm telling you, it was a highlight of my life. Not to see the topless, because honestly, 1 in 5 are worth looking at the beach. The other 4 are not. I'm not really wild about it. You know, a 46-year-old lady, sorry, doesn't work for me. But there were a few 20-somethings, and I looked twice. We went out for dinner every night for 7 days, and Kurt Rickenbacker taught me a good deal, and I taught him one thing. And he got angry at me for having exposed his shortcoming for not knowing what the yen carry trade was. To borrow at 0% in Japan and invest in the US stock market and make $1 trillion with leverage. That's what Wall Street did all through the 90s.
Yep.
And they learned about the carry trade. So then Rubin comes in and says, we'll make gold 0% on the lease and we'll get a gold carry trade, all domestic. And then we made our own percentage rate 0 so we could do a arbitrage on treasuries, all domestic. So we learned the carry trade with Japan and we used it with gold and the treasuries in the United States. And Rickenbacker didn't know what the yen carry trade was. I explained it to him. And instead of saying, thank you, that's very interesting, I can see the $1 trillion potential. He got very angry at me, insulted me, found some shortcomings, told me I'm too young to make it, because I was 51 years old at the time when I visited him. He said, you're a very young man to have such insights, and you don't even have finance background. I said, never underestimate a PhD in statistics, sir. Most of them that I know are very smart, including from Wharton. So, Kurt Rickenbacker taught me something. He said, Jim, I want to teach you the most important principle of capitalism, the most important generator of wealth, the most important factor in building personal income across the macro landscape, and that is direct business investment. Doesn't matter if it's foreign, direct business investment. You buy plant, you buy equipment. So the landlords of the plant get money, the makers of your equipment get money, then you buy trucks and you buy cars and you have the office buildings. Did I lose you?
No, we're still good.
Okay, I lost my picture. Okay, I'm sorry. So then you get the office buildings. So the owners of the office buildings, they get paid. Then you get the maintenance crew and the guards for the parking lot, and they get paid. And then you get to the actual making of something, so the suppliers get paid. And then you get your big payroll where all your employees get paid. And then you get the supporting industries and supporting businesses like, you know, like your mom and pop, your grocery stores, your convenience stores, your barber shops, your hardware stores, your gardening shops, and all these supporting businesses, they get paid. And you get the 7 to 1 multiplier effect for all of this business investment, and you build up the wealth of those communities where you have the investment.
Right.
Okay. He said, what starts it all, Jim? I said, I get it. Business investment. That's why CapEx is important. Capital expenditures. That's more than business investment. That's capital expenditures like for machines. It's machines for the plant to make a car. It's a refrigerator or stove for a house. It's a car or a truck for a business. It's tangible. It's capital expenditure, CapEx. Okay, CapEx is very important, and CapEx is declining in Germany right now. And that's a very important statistic. So I think Trump has a big CapEx plan for business investment. And the risk, in my opinion, is the first 3 years. He might try to make some deal with these nations where they will not have the right to take our gold for a trade deficit. And that's a pretty difficult bill of sale to put on the table and to actually sell. So let's watch the reindustrialization plan that Trump might put forth in the campaign trail, because he's going to get questions on the campaign trail coming this spring and summer and fall. What happened with your plan to reindustrialize America with $1 trillion infrastructure? It all fell like a lead balloon, sir. What's going on? What new plan do you have? And I think he's waiting for Inauguration Day to do a lot of things that are going to piss off a lot of people and bankrupt a lot of very wealthy people. Like introduce new energy systems that put the U.S. energy grid on notice that you're obsolete. You can't do that and run for president. So that's what I think is coming, and I think he's gonna win handsomely. But it'll be interesting to watch the Midwestern and prairie states, because he's wrecked a lot of their farms.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you know, there's a funny phrase that I heard a while ago, many years ago. They're going to hold their noses and vote for Trump.
Yeah.
They wrecked, their businesses were wrecked, because they're going to say, Elizabeth Warren, no. Bernie Sanders, no. The pack of other morons in the Democrat Party, no. I'm going to hold my nose and vote Republican like I've always done. So I think Trump's going to win an easy victory, because the white hats are going to monitor the voter fraud. And I've got a big question. What about all the Arabs? What about all the Africans? I got from one client of mine who's in Lewiston, Maine. Chris, Lewiston, Maine. He said, we've got a Somali problem here. Are you kidding me? What on earth are Africans doing in the state of Maine? They've got an Arab problem in West Virginia. I heard from other clients. Okay, people may not realize it, but the immigrants are told a lie, that their benefits will continue, that their, schooling, the school benefit, health benefit, and food benefit will all continue if they vote Democrat. Have you heard the same, Chris?
I haven't heard that officially, but I hear all sorts of things like that, so I wouldn't be shocked in the least.
Yeah. When I was on a ski trip way back in 2003, I was on a bus. I was going from A to B, Denver, to a mountain location to meet my friend. My skis, my skis are in the back of the bus. There were 10 Somalis on the bus. And I was wondering, what the hell is that? And I was told, there's a significant Somali population in Colorado. This was 2003. And I wasn't thinking, to rig the vote. I was thinking, no, maybe for, middle class, lower class worker. But I've come to learn that the importing and the influx of these Arabs and Africans, they're not skilled. They don't assimilate. They're not educated. They don't speak English. So what are they doing here? Why are they brought in without proper vetting from our immigration office and department? What are they doing here? The answer is simple. It's the Clergy Plan to water down our society and dumb it down, and also to create some civil strife and violence. And that's why you get fines in Europe for speaking out against, say, an Arab who raped your daughter, or an Arab refugee who robbed you at gunpoint and put a knife in your ribs, and you had to go to the hospital, but you wanted to make a complaint, and for your complaint, you got a €1,000 fine. Okay, the objective is the Clergy Plan to wreck our society. That's the plan. And I think that they just decided, tell them all that they have to vote Democrat. So now they're scared, and they vote Democrat because they think they're going to lose their benefits.
It's sure going to be a fascinating year. I mean, I guess every election escalates the circus to a new level. I can't even imagine what other surprises they'll have in store for us this year. Although, just one last thing, because you've mentioned it a couple times throughout our call today, going back to gold, just if you could give a quick comment and then can let you run, because I sure do appreciate your time today. Starting to hear whispers from a couple different places about LBMA golds are possibly getting close to the point where someone's taking a lot of delivery and maybe reaching a break point. Have you heard anything to that effect?
Well, the entire exchange for physical that came into being in a big way and big volume early in 2019, that is evidence of a breakdown because the volume of the faked delivery to close out contracts exceeds by a factor of 2 or 3 to 1 the global mine output. So you're starting to see evidence of a breakdown. And then 2 months ago, they had a new category of gold. It's eligible and then register, but now there's a new one called pledged.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like to call it, it's not a pledged category, it's a stolen category. I mean, let's get real. I don't go for nonsensical names and nomenclature. What they're doing is they're stretching the hypothecation of legitimate gold accounts. And I would not want to have a family fortune sitting in a European bullion bank account.
Yeah.
I would much rather have it in a Zurich, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, formally bonded vault facility.
Right.
So I believe we're getting to the point now where the system for the COMEX and the LBMA, London Bullion Market Association, it's often just called the London Gold Market. I believe we're getting the whole system stretched. There's a very important point that can be told about the last 3 or 4 months. Typically, when the gold price rises, so does the official, not the specs, but the commercial shorts in gold. The volume of the commercial shorts in gold rises with the increase in the gold price. Now, it was about, I don't know, early October, late September, right around there, we hit a nice high in gold. It was 1,750 or thereabout. Don't hold me to the exact number. When the price came down, $150 or more, the typical reaction within the futures market is that with a lowering gold price, you get a lowering of the open interest short position for the commercials. Right. And the exact opposite happened for the first time ever. As the price of gold went down, they had to continue shorting it because the buyers came in, new buyers, and I think they're Chinese with a New York front, and that New York front might be JP Morgan because JP Morgan is compromised. They lost their headquarters to a Chinese conglomerate, which opened my eyes to the fact that the Chinese now control JP Morgan. So if the gold price went down in the last 3 months and the open interest went up, we're in a situation where typically 300,000 gold contracts are at work, and now we've got more than double. It's like 770,000, which means that if we get a nice move to 1,900 or 2,000 in the next several months, we're likely to see some of these big financial firms get wrecked by their gold shorts. Now, I argue that Credit Suisse is already in that position. I got insider scoop that I got this from Dave Morgan, that Credit Suisse is having tremendous difficulty unwinding their what do you call it? Their arbitrage trades. Yeah. They're two-sided trades. You buy this, short that. They're derivative trades. Credit Suisse is in big trouble. And we speculated that they're appealing to the Fed. And I made the point, but wait a minute, they're a Swiss bank. And then I heard from the voice, Jim, they're U.S. registry. They can be first in line at the Fed window. So when I make the point that the much higher short position to manage gold and keep it under wraps, you got to keep in mind that in the next big move up, there's going to be some big damage to the big banks. And I think we're starting to see that with Credit Suisse. It's not like I can say, well, you know, we might see it in the future. I think we're seeing it now. Yeah. So that's what I think is the big new issue. And I'm looking forward to some lawsuits for the London market having to do with usage of pledged gold, which is stolen, and falsified exchange for physical delivery, and coercion at the point of a gun, and what's the word, banishment from the London market if they don't roll it over into a cash delivery, which they then buy again for, say, the next March or June contract for gold. The law now is, this is part of what Volcker did and how Volcker really screwed up the gold market. He's given a lot of credit for managing the bond market prudently, but he was responsible for making the COMEX a sell-only market. He eliminated the legitimate purchasing opportunity with gold long contracts. He just made it punitive. Keep on doing it, you'll be dismissed. You'll never be allowed to go through the doors again. In other words, you'll never be able to be active in the trading in the gold market. So, you know, I think we're going to have some very surprising events. You know, Turkey is in the news as having a digital gold market. It's sounding like a market, but they're not using the word market. They're talking about a trading mechanism and a trading feature, but it sounds like they're creating a market for this mechanism and feature, and it's going to be driven by blockchain so that there won't be any fraud, or at least a lot less fraud. I'm actually hearing that quantum computers can break the encryption for all the cryptocurrencies. So, you know, we're going to have some wild times here, Chris.
We sure are, and geez, I sure am grateful for everything you shared today. And again, I know you have some things to do, so perhaps just to wrap up, if you could let folks know how to find you. And I was excited to hear that now you do offer consulting on your website as well, so let folks know about that.
Okay, it's golden-jackass.com. It started last January, which means we've got a full year. Just had the full year anniversary for the new website. Got a Western European website manager. He's an extremely proficient, skilled, efficient, and expert fellow. He's done some things that I hadn't had before, like increase ability for search engines and reduce marketing noise and junk. But I still get some junk mail, you know, hire us and we'll increase the web traffic and eyeball. Okay, fine. It's impossible to get around some of that. But the new website has a better look and feel, and it's much more amenable to the portable devices. I invite people to go on and it's golden-jackass.com. Check out the free material. We got a button there on the right side. It's for public articles and interviews. I try not to have a second interview with anybody unless they provide a link for the first interview. And I've kept to that, and you've honored that, and you've given me links, and we got them posted. I've got a donate button, which is kind of important for me. I'm going to try to move away from you know, complaining about errors and fraud and all this extreme difficulty here, but it'll be easier to stop my complaining about the losses here in the semi-third world when I have fewer of them. So, you know, to my friends and colleagues who say, Jim, you got to quit bitching and moaning, I say, maybe I'll quit bitching and moaning when there's less to quit bitching and moaning about for active losses. Because we just had an event in the last several weeks. It was another major expense. And it had to do with faulty construction more than fraud. But I've got a donate button, and I'm very grateful to the, believe it or not, several hundred people who've made a donation. And I'll never forget their help, because I believe that, it's hard to say, but I believe that in October I would have been out of business, and I'm still under threat. So I still got more problems. I'm cleaning up problems that occurred a year or two ago. So anyway, I've got things that I'm working on. I want to do the responsible thing for a fraudulent scene and for a crime scene. I want to do the right thing, do the proper cleanup, get the proper loan coverage, get those fraudulent loans, get them all covered, get the new paperwork done, and sell, liquidate. Some people who are kind of naive say to me, Jim, what the hell's wrong with you? Just sell them. What's your problem? I said, well, it took 18 months to clean up one asset so that I can sell it. Do you understand this? It's very difficult. So anyway, I've got the donate button, and it's still working. And I'm very surprised that the last 2 interviews have resulted in more aid. And I'm a little bit knocked back, Chris. I'm knocked back, impressive, surprised, impressed, shocked, grateful. But now I got a new button. It's a consult button, and I've been calling it an extended hour. But what I mean by that is a long hour. The extended hour is a long hour where the first 5 or 8 minutes, 10 minutes will be getting to know you. What's your background? What's your business like? What has your investment strategy been? What are your preferences for investment? What do you like to research? What area of the financial markets do you focus on? How can I help you? Let me hear your list of questions. So I've got the consult button working, and that was installed only about 3 days ago. So I'm very happy about that. And we had a little glitch. We had a problem making sure that quantity equals 1. I don't want people to accidentally go back and back. What's this? Well, let me check that. And before you know it, they ordered 3 hours. No, 1. It's forced to 1. So we got that working. But the website now has 15 and a half years for it. Well, the business, the Hetrick Letter newsletter. And I'm no longer a young man. I'm struggling here. But I'm in good health. And, it's to the point where, this is going to sound kind of odd, Chris, but I had a gang of about 8 or 10 buddies in Ohio from my college days. And we keep up with each other. And in particular, I keep up with about 2 or 3 closer ones. We had our first death. A guy, his name was Bob, and he was in San Francisco. That's where he settled after college years, and he died. He had a heart attack. So, this is evidence of the aging process. I'm no longer a young man. I started this newsletter when I was 52 years old, and now I'm collecting Social Security at 67. And people give me the nice compliment, well, Jim, when I hear you, you don't sound like you're a 67-year-old man, because a man 67 and a half years old might sound a little bit more like this. But I'm in good shape, and I stay active. I'm on my bicycle a lot. I got these little ailments, and, it had nothing to do with finance, but I had a weightlifting accident, and I hurt my right shoulder, right rotator cuff. I can't lift weights, and I can't swim. I can swim and, putter around, but I can't do what I usually like to do, is swim a quarter mile or swim a half mile or swim 10 yards, swim 10 yards underwater and surprise somebody coming up, squirting them in the face, swimming between their legs, stuff like that, fun stuff. But now I got some other injuries. My left knee is bad. That's from a 1990 accident and surgery, reconstruction. And I was told, you got 25 years on this, Jim. That was 93. Okay, so 2018, it's a 25 years. The knee's still going strong, but I highly recommend MSM MSM Glucosamine MSM Glucosamine chondroitin. It'll cost you about $8 a month, and it'll relieve your knee problems. You don't need the big pharma solution that'll cost you $1,000. No, $8 a month. I've been doing that now for 20 years. And I've got no knee problems. I can go down steps. I just noticed that if I'm in an awkward position, like I'm leaning forward, can you still hear me okay? I don't know if we got,
you're coming through good.
okay. If you're leaning forward, you got to clean a window. You got to reach and get that window. You might actually bend your knee the wrong way a bit too much. That's the sort of problem that I have, but I find that an overnight sleep, and I maybe take one more of the MSM Glucosamine chondroitin. That's hard. That's a mouthful. Take one more extra pill. I don't even think about it the next day. I'm good. My mother and father and I got into an argument back in '04. My mother had a bad knee problem. And I said, Mom, why don't you try this MSM chondroitin? And she said, oh, I don't know, Jim, it's experimental. I'm going to go with what my doctor recommends. He recommended Synvisc, which Medicare covered, cost $1,700 with a 3-month expectation of benefit. $600 a month with the Medicare Rockefeller subsidy. I told her, well, Mom, you know, in 3 months, maybe then you can try the MSM chondroitin. No, it was 2 months. She said, Jim, my knee is bad. Don't tell Bob. Don't tell my dad. Don't tell Bob. Bob just turned 100, by the way, and he's still spry. He's still active. He's still lucid. Anyway, Mom said to me, Jim, can you give me a few of those pills, that MS whatever? What? MSM chondroitin, Mom. I said, well, you know, I'm going to have to bill you. She said, what? I said, well, I paid $8 for these, but you know, I've learned from Big Pharma that I can charge you $100. And she said, you're going to charge me $100 for that bottle? Where do I pick it up? I said, I'm not telling you that either. Give me $100. When she reached for her wallet and pulled out $100, I said, Mom, I'm just kidding. I said, I want you to understand the profit margin from Big Pharma. And she said, I know, they make a lot of money on that Synvisc and it didn't work very well. My mother in 2 days was perfectly fine with her knee and took it for the next 4 years before she died. $8 a month. Okay, so you know, you can do a lot of things to prevent the harmful effects of aging. I can't do anything about this except maybe a stem cell. There are 2 doctors in San Jose, Costa Rica here, and there are a bunch in Panama, but it costs $5,000. So, you know, I need a whole lot more consulting hours or a whole lot more clients or a whole lot more benefactors. And I've got a couple benefactors who've asked not to have their names revealed. They like my work. They want me to keep going. They want me to be uninhibited. So if you want to be a benefactor, I call them the silver medallion client member, silver medallion membership. I'm kidding, but I'm not, because I've sent them a little card. But go to the Golden-Jackass website, bounce around, sign up for the newsletter, make a donation, consider a consulting hour. And I can say this as a promise, that if you want to make it a consulting hour where it's also going to be a good deal about repatriation, leaving the United States, problems, cultural differences, challenges with residence applications in Central America or elsewhere, I'll just make it a longer hour. I'll make it 90 minutes. I'll try to make it cheaper that way. But I'm hoping people sign up for the newsletter. And, you know, last time we had the interview, we had some new clients. So thanks for having me on, Chris. It's been a joy. We went a little longer than I expected. Holy moly. Again, almost 2 hours. Wow. It's fun talking to you.
Well, it sure is a pleasure. Again, I was listening to your interview with Craig Hemke last night, which it's just always fun. It's nice to hear this information, which isn't always the easiest to digest, but you make it fun to listen to. I'm darn grateful. I know I got a lot of comments from the last time we did it that people are grateful for what you're sharing and stuff that you really can't find anywhere else. So got the website pulled up here. We'll have a link to that below. Again, folks, it is golden-jackass.com. And Jim, I think that's great that you offer the consulting now, and people can check in with you if they have some specific questions. And aside from that, just want to say thank you again and wish you a happy new year. And my genuine hope, a lot of these things turn around for you this year, because we certainly need you around. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Well, I wish all a happy new year and Merry Christmas. And it's a new year and a new opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. So far, it's got a good start. I'm on day 3, and it's been a good start. Thanks for having me on. And let me just give thanks to my colleagues. I call my Jackass crew, Jackass colleagues. They know who they are. They don't listen to a lot of the interviews because they wouldn't learn much. We're involved in developing a lot of this stuff and analyzing it and chewing it over. But I'm very grateful to them, and 2 or 3 of them in particular. A couple have kind of fallen off and not participated quite so much, but that's their choice, their lives. But I'm very grateful to a few, and I remind them of my gratitude. And they always say, "Oh, Jim, that's great. No problem. I'm glad to see that the newsletter is doing well, and I'm contributing because people need to know these things." So thanks for having me on, Chris, and we'll do it again in a couple months.
It's been a pleasure, my friend, and thank you. And I'll look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Okay, good.